All right. This is the Hampton Road Ship Model Society May meeting. It failed to record the business portion. Sorry for that. We're now doing show and tell, and I'll be nice to Sean again. Let Sean go first if he wants. Where is Sean?
Yeah, no, we're gonna let Sean go.
Thanks for being nice again, Greg.
Yeah. It happens every once in a while.
Oh, whoops. I didn't do that. I didn't do that right. Oh, you disabled screen sharing.
Didn't disable it, forgot to start it. Give me just 1 second here. There you go. Should be all right now.
Okay. All right, so this is my ongoing saga of the Siren. So I did a lot of deconstruction this month. I actually really didn't get a lot done. I did a lot of tearing down and rebuilding. One of the things that I did rebuild was the sills and trim of each of the gun ports. When I originally started the model, I used the basswood that came with the kit. And over time, it got really fuzzy and damaged as I was doing the exterior planking. And so I went back and removed all of that basswood and then retrimmed each gun port with maple, like the rest of the models coming out to be. So I redid each gun port. So those are the sterns. And then once I completed relining each gun port, I went into the interior and began sanding away all of the interior portions of the frames to get them down to the appropriate thickness, which you can see here in the bow. I have whittled down the bow framing to the proper thickness. And then I began planking the interior of the model, again using maple as my material of choice. So here you can see where I've started to line the interior bulkheads and have begun cleaning up around each of the gun ports. You can see here where I've relined the sills with the maple, and then of course the maple planks. One of the things that I had done early on was I had planked using the 1/8 wide planks that the instructions had called for. But as I got up, they were below the top portion of the sill and ended up, after doing one whole side up to the top of the sill, I had to tear it all out as the 1/8-inch boards didn't quite make it to the top, where it's supposed to just have a continuous plank going over that would then cover the upper part of the gun port. So I ended up having to, I used 1/8 for my first run, which would equal out to the openings for the row locks. And then I used 5/32 as the next two boards, which then gave me where I needed to be so that when I run the next plank above, it'll come out just right. So that was my second form of deconstruction that I did over the past month. And then last month, I mentioned that I was having a really difficult time trying to bend the maple to the counter's profile for the top rail. So I ended up, I did 8 or 9 tries last month and they all failed. But I was trying to do it on the model itself based on a lot of other posts that I'd seen on NRG. I tried doing it on the model and had absolutely no success. So I ended up going back to my carpentry skills and just made it a forming jig and then soaked the plank in water for about 3 to 4 hours in warm water. Took it out, dried it off, and then bent it to the form, and it actually came out pretty well. I had no splitting, no fuzz or anything like that. It actually bent really, really nice. So here it is now on the model. I do have a little bit of cleaning up and reforming to do where the clamps were a little over pressurized, but I am quite happy with the bending of the maple. You can see here where I've been bringing up the interior of the planking up. I also deconstructed the interior of the stern. I didn't like how the planking had come in around the sills, so I also redid all of that this past month. So a lot of tearing down and rebuilding was the order of the day for this past month. And then here you can see where the run of the interior planking on the starboard side is. And lastly, what I started working on was the fixed blocks that are going throughout the hull. There's 6 of them. The stern has two pulley blocks, and then the midships and towards the bow are single blocks. So here's all of the material that I used to create that fixed block. The kit just talked about drilling holes in the side of the planking and simulating a block. I decided I wanted to try my hand at actually making a block. And so I ended up doing all of them, but 2. I still have 2 single blocks to finish. But this is a double block, so you can see all the parts that make up the block, and then the finished block is here. I threw a penny in, and that's actually a real penny for scale effect. And this is it temporarily installed in the hull, what it will look like once I finish with it. And then this is one of the single blocks that I made. And that's the end of my presentation.
Very nice. All right. Kevin Britton, you have anything today?
Unfortunately, no. With my work schedule lately, I haven't had a chance to really do much on my African queen, so I really don't have anything to add for this month.
Okay. How about you, Mr. Wynn?
No, I don't have anything. I've been kind of quiet since last month.
Thank you, Mr. Wynn, for those great photographs.
I hope they help. I've got a few more. I don't think they're much better.
They do help.
How about you, Mike? North Carolina, Mike? There we go.
No, sir.
No?
Nothing
Okay.
today.
Boy, everyone's following my lead and doing nothing, huh? I bet Don's got something. Got a dead rise to show us, Don?
Yeah, I do. Let me see if I can bring her over here. I'm in the middle of all these little sub-assemblies, but it's starting to come together and I'm kind of pleased. All right, got some of the detail paint on it. And then some of the deck vettings. I'm in the shop because I was thrown out of the house because there's 4 nurses in there. Well, got my motor box. I haven't set that in place yet. One of the captains here told me to put heat shields around the mufflers to keep them burning. You know, so I took his advice and did that. I got my center console, and I've got some interior fittings for inside the house. Small fire extinguisher. The only thing that's not scratch built is the prop and the wheel. The rest of this, everything else is scratch built.
Did you say this is going to be auctioned off?
Well, we're going to raffle it off.
Raffle off?
Yeah, so we're probably going to work with Gloucester Brewing and one of the local vineyards here to show it. And you know, we hope to raise some money for Riverside Hospital here in Gloucester. So, but yeah, it's coming together real nice. And next time I'll use still pictures. It's a little easier to see things. Anyhow, that's what I have.
All right, very nice.
All right, thank you.
Jane or Mike, do either of you have something you'd like to share with us? Guests are welcome to participate in the show and tell.
No, we don't have anything.
It didn't give you any advance notice either, so
No.
fair of me.
I'd just like to mention quickly, we do have an interest in pond boats and was hoping that maybe someone in your group has a similar interest. And if so, maybe we could share some thoughts for a moment. I think Joe Lorenzo, we recognize him from the New Jersey Club. We've exchanged information about pond boats. So several of us are involved in that sort of thing. Any of your members involved with pond boats?
One of them who's since hung up all of his RC gear. We'll get to him later.
Okay.
I think he knows who I'm talking
thank you.
about.
Okay.
Mike, I do restorations for patrons at Mariners Museum on the condition that they make a substantial contribution to the museum's general fund at the successful completion. And I'll show you what I'm working on now. But most of them for the past, I would say 6 or 7 years, have been pond yachts. Some very, very nice. One of my, I'll say clients, one of the museum patrons has brought me 3 pond yachts for restoration. And then a couple of years ago brought me a hull. And I said, what should I do with this, Debbie? She said, turn it into a pond yacht. So that was a complete creation. I'm becoming familiar with the various types and some of the steering mechanisms that look very Machiavellian to me for most of the time. So I would like to hear some of your information. We can share some notes on the steering devices that were employed.
Oh, surely there are several, and there's an era involved before the turn of the 20th century. Basically, it was very primitive, the steering. And ideally, you'd arrange your settings of the steering mechanism to have the boat sail straight ahead, basically, yes. And then later, after 1904, they came up with other steering mechanisms that had a little bit more adjustability and could adapt to changing wind conditions. When the mainsail shifted, the gearing mechanism shifted with the rudder, that sort of thing. So they had it was a major improvement after 1904, and that went on until about the 50s. That's about when I think pond boating lost some interest in both here and in England, where it was a major sport as well. But the steering mechanisms are intriguing. There's a fellow in England that keeps up with these right now. He's does pond boat restorations, and he actually makes pond boats from scratch, and he has a shop there, and I'll get his name for you. Groves Pond. It's Groves Pond Boats in England, and he has some stories about the old steering gears that are pretty interesting. But he replicates those today and commands a stellar price for his work. So pond boats still have an interest in parts of the world, right? And including those old steering mechanisms you're referring to, right?
Well, let's swap email addresses at the end and we communicate with each other. I think we had one person who was either familiar with or from Deltaville. Who was that? Anyway,
He didn't join us today, I don't think.
Deltaville had a very, very nice display of pond yachts. So I guess it's been a couple of years ago now. Anyway, we'll swap emails, Mike.
Just a word, further word. When dealing with the old pond boats, the old hull you mentioned that you had gotten, we have to be careful about the finishing of some of those old hulls. Back in the turn of the 20th century, the end of the 19th century, they treated their hulls with lead paint at that time. So when you refinish an old hull like that, you might want to be mindful that the original finishings might have involved lead. I don't know, you understand that. Just a word about the old pond boats, right?
Good point.
We have someone in a club Joe, I think that was you, right?
Yeah,
Dealing with
yes, it was.
pond
Can you
boat.
hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. It occurred to me as I was working on this model, the pond model, that I call it a pond model. The paint flicked off, and I think I described it as peeling an egg, a hard-boiled egg. And in the middle of that, it was like I froze, saying, "Oh God, I wonder if this is lead-based paint." Um, I'm past that now, and I'm still standing upright, so I'm not sure
Oh,
if
that's
it
good
was.
news. That's good
Yeah.
news.
I had to seal it. I ultimately I ended up sealing the entire hull with automotive primer, and just to seal what was left there, because I refused to take any more off. But your word to the wise is really appropriate.
Thanks, Joe. And look forward to seeing you in the New Jersey meeting too.
I'll be there.
Good. We will too. Thank you.
All right. So the screen is readjusted a few times. Some people have either joined or left. I'm scanning to see who I may have missed or who may have joined. Someone must have dropped out. I'm betting Ryland has nothing to show from Hawaii unless he's picked up a souvenir model while he's there, which brings us to Mr. Berger, who always has something good to show us.
Are you so sure?
Yep, I'm positive.
All right.
You're Mr. Reliable.
All righty. Well, I have a couple of things. I hadn't really made a whole lot of progress on the boat because, well, we were out of town for a bit, and then well, I'm down in the weeds with little parts. So, one little part takes a few days, but I do have a couple of things I can show. Starting out, here is a photo of the Campbell. Pictured there is the storage of the torpedo truck that the VEs carried. And of course, I needed one for my very own. It was used to help facilitate the torpedo. I guess they have a torpedo on this thing, they move it around deck and up onto the next deck. I made a version of it out of brass, photo etching and so forth, and then folded it all together and soldered it. And as you can see, I didn't use my hand this time. I just have unusually large hands, I guess. But anyway, it gives you an idea of the size of it. Okay, if I can get this to move on. With the swivel wheels and so forth. I actually spokes, the wheel cut off sections of tube and angular brass. And that's unit ready for mounting against. Then turn my attention to the radar. After having set the mast, two platforms for the SANSL radar unit, which I completed, and mounted on the top of the mast. These are also all photo etched brass and bit scrap, all soldered together. And that's pretty much where I am today. I just haven't had a whole lot of time to do more than a couple parts. I could take several days. That's it. Maybe next month I'll have something more to show. I don't know what the policy will be with the museum for bringing in displays and things for the meeting. I'll just wait and see whether we can bring
Gene, you're breaking up a lot on my audio reception.
Yep.
Okay. Well, what part did you not get?
I heard very little of any of it.
Well, we're more interested in just seeing what he has to show rather than actually hearing him talk, I think.
Oh, well, I can take care of that.
But I think you asked a question. Had to do with bringing models in.
Whether we could bring things in. I imagine if we're allowed to be there, we're allowed to bring objects in, huh?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. All right, well, that was basically the question. I don't know why with his suffering here, but that's pretty much all I have to show for this month.
You'll just have to have it washed at the decontamination station at the guard shack.
Yeah, I'll have it hosed down. Very good. Thank you.
All right. Moving on to Hank then. You have anything to show us, Hank?
No, not this month. I put a picture of Beagle in the logbook, and I've finished constructing all of the masts. So all the construction work is done now. And moving on to hours of rigging.
Have fun with that. All right, Mort, would you like to share anything with us today?
Well, I'm building the Victory, the Caldecraft Victory, and I'm sort of changing the kit because I'm exposing the Admiral's sleeping cabin on the middle gun deck and a little bit of his dining area, and on the upper gun deck, I'm doing the on the quarter deck rather. I'm showing the master's cabin, furnished master's cabin with a bunk, his desk, a couple of trunks, part of the captain's dining area, and part of his day cabin. So it's almost, if you look down it from above, you'll be able to see it all, because I opened up the quarter deck, and a lot of the upper gun deck is opened also. So it's taking some time, and right in the quarter galleries, I put in commodes and hanging lanterns. On the, and right now I'm working on the bow, doing the head rails and the head rail supports. I'm having a little trouble with that because it's brand, got to be bent. So it's taking me a lot of time to figure that out and to get it properly bent. And that's about where I am. I'm about about a little more than 2 years into it. And I do have a little build log on model ship road, if anyone wants to look. It's Mort Stoll Victory. And that's where I am right now.
More Mike B, real quick. The Victory, you said?
Yeah, the Caldecraft Victory, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who is the manufacturer, the builder?
Caldecraft.
Caldecraft, yes. We're doing that too with the Caldecraft kit. And how are you finding the going with the kit so far?
I don't have a problem with it.
Good. Nor do we.
I
yes.
don't. I mean, the wood's okay. I use maple for the deck. I don't like the deck planks. I'm using maple. I mean, I like the kit. You know,
Good.
There's always room for improvement, but I'm happy with the kit. I'm curious to see what Chris Whitten's kit's going to be like if that ever comes out. Because he started a build log of that on Model Ship World. Also, that's going to be interesting.
Good. Well, thank you. Okay.
Look forward to seeing your build log. I'll check that out later. Lee Martin, what are you up to these days?
I'm still working on the Soleil Real, but it's a very large and clumsy model to move around, so I'm going to pass. But I will try to bring it to the meeting next month.
All right. Your voice is kind of muffled. Which model was it?
It's in French, and I think it's pronounced Soleil Royal, which means royal sun.
Okay, I understand. All right.
And it's about a 3.5 foot model, and so it's difficult for me to move around even at this stage. But I'll try to drag it out of my workroom and bring it in next month when we have the live meeting.
All right. Very nice. looking forward to seeing that. Ron Lewis, got any pond boat restorations to show us?
No,
Or anything
sir,
else?
but I do have a restoration, and I'll see if I can give you an idea of what it looks like. Where are we? This is obviously the Constitution. It was a patron's ship. It was really rough. I'm nearly finished now, but what I'm proudest of is the billet head. All of that fancy arabesque work had to be done by hand with a paint pen. And I'm really not an artist, but I was pretty proud of the way that it came out. Now, obviously on the Constitution, we're talking about hair rails and that sort of thing. Well, this is a solid hull that just has kind of a V triangle at the bow. So, and the original guy had the catch nets for the jibs, where they would have been completely enclosed in the real Constitution. So this is kind of a blend of a visit to the Constitution some many years ago, and then a second visit after the 2018 sailing back into the Charlestown yard from my own experience. And there are a lot of changes because the fellow who owns it wasn't really concerned with the age of the model or anything else. He just wanted something neat he could pass on to his kids. So I've changed a lot from the original to make it more authentic in the Constitution's current arrangement. It'll be done in just a couple weeks. As you notice, the running rigging is the last thing you go on, and we're pretty much ready with that. So as soon as it does get finished, I'll do a couple of before and afters, and give it back to him. And this is going to create a gift to the general fund of the museum of between $2,500 and $3,000. I think I mentioned that before, and somebody said it's like $1.23 an hour. I'm up to 1,083 hours at this point. That's it.
Well, good work on behalf of the museum. I'm sure they'll appreciate it. Joe Lorenzo's got something sitting in front of him. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, this is my my perpetual model of cheerful. When I was previously pretty much a solid hull modeler, and what you don't see is the pain, agony, and sweat that went into this siren model. The starboard side has been planked 3 times, and the port side is 1.5 times, because when I joined MSW, I found I was woefully inadequate. So off all the planking came and started again. This is the, as I said, I may have said, is the boxwood version. I planked the deck in holly. Everything else is boxwood. I marvel at the people that have done this. I ended up investing in both the Shoreline mill and lathe, because I could not replicate the things that Chuck Pizarro does with a drill and file. So a lot of this has been replicated on that on those machines. I've still got a long way to go. I am right now working on the mast. I've had so much trouble trying to do all of the mast turning. I'm not a wood turner, but I've learned a lot turning this boxwood.
Joe, you should try the 7-10-7 rule for making the spars and masts. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I am. I had talked to David Ansero about that, and he set me straight. So I've managed to come up with a technique to do it, and they come out well. Boxwood is lovely to turn, and hopefully, if I get the mast done, I can start the remainder of the rigging and finish up a lot of the detail. Behind this is that pond model I'm working on. And behind that is the Florida Sharpie fishing schooner. I've yet to receive the drawing from the Smithsonian. So that's just sitting there waiting. And behind that is Winchelsea. So I'm not sure my shot clock is ticking, so I'm not sure if I don't hurry up, whether these will all get done. That's it.
Looks beautiful. I built Cheerful last year, and it's a great project. And yours is looking wonderful.
Thank you.
Impressive looking, very
Thank
impressive
you.
looking.
It's been fun. I'm sure you all agree it's a passion.
Bill Brown, how about you?
Sure, thanks, Greg. I can share what's going on with the Chris Craft project. Folks see the slide?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
What I've started to do, since this is a scratch build project, I've got the secure my fittings, and what I'm doing with a lot of the more involved fittings is I'm using a CAD tool by the name of Fusion 360 to design them, and then what I do is send the output to company Shapeways for 3D printing. In one case, in another case, I happen to have a friend that has a laser cutter, and I'll show you that. So people might ask why Fusion 360. Simple answer is because it's free to hobbyists. Otherwise, it's very expensive. So the first thing I was looking at is the nav light. This is a restored boat, full-size restored boat. And the nav light here, which I've circled, also has a hole in the middle of it to accept a flagpole. So.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Happy Mother's Day! Oh my!
I actually had the same reaction to the nav light.
Very good.
Yeah. But, you know, hey,
somebody has a Mother's Day celebration in the background that they could mute, perhaps. I like your comment, Bill. That was great. That was good.
Yeah.
Hey.
So this is the
It's not happening, so I'm going to mute everyone, and you're going to unmute yourself, okay, Bill?
Sure.
I know she's never gonna know what it is.
I'm trying to anyway. Searching for the control.
Oh, okay. Craig, you should be able to mute the one at the mic that's active. Greg, I think you're muted now.
I'm just having a hard time finding the controls because everything's shrunk now that he's sharing.
You know who it is?
I don't have the. I know I don't, and I don't have the full list shown. I got it. That was Patrick.
I think it's Patrick.
I got it. I just muted him.
All right. Patrick really loves these nav lights. So this is the design captured in Fusion 360. This is the output from Shapeways. I use their first available plastic. It kind of comes in a little rough, but I'll sand that down. It'll get a coat of primer and then a coat of top paint. One side will get green, one side will get red, and then like a chromish paint for the rest of the surface. The other thing I designed in Fusion is the steering wheel. This is, these have the sharp corners because this design is not done for a 3D printing. This is done for a cutout in a laser cutter. So the laser cutter is dealing with more of a 2D type arrangement. And this is the output of the laser cutter. Chuck actually made me 3 renditions, which was nice of him. He also included, and I didn't ask for this, he included 3 discs that I can use to create the horn that goes over the top of the steering wheel at the end of the shaft. So that's coming along. One other thing I did, I don't know if you can see this, but the Chris has a beautiful instrument panel. It's like a sterling silver engraved instrument panel right in the center of the dash. And I designed that in Fusion 360, and that's the part I got back from Shapeways. I'll need to, again, treat that and paint that up. As far as where I'm at with the build, this is where I'm at with the construction. I've got the thing planked, I've got the decks now on, and I've started building the interior seats. Next seat I gotta do is actually the front 3 seats. I bought some lamb's leather to form the cushion seats over top, and then the dash will go in, and then I've got to address a lot of the fittings with some K&S parts and stuff like that. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Looks really sharp.
Thanks, Greg.
Okay, and again, all the pictures have been scrambled. I was going top left to bottom right. Now everyone's out of order. Who has not presented that would like to? Anyone? Well done. Okay.
Well, Bill, I have a question for you then. What would you say is the ease of use of the Fusion 360 program?
So I have a bit of a background in CAD design from my youth when I used to be an engineer working, and so I kind of took to it pretty quickly because I had some experience with some other CAD tools. It can be a little intimidating, but the parts I'm making, you know, it's I'm not doing any complex geometries, but it can be frustrating not having sort of an instructor sitting next to you. So I'd give it a try if you haven't. It's free to hobbyists. I would just, there's a lot of videos, tutorials out there for beginners that are good. And I've had success with it, although I can tell you I do pound the table every once in a while because it does stuff that you just don't think it's going to do. But, you know, it's a decent program.
Yeah.
What type of file do you send to Shapeways?
It's called a .stl file, and it has a very easy interface where you just output to there, and Shapeways will then do an analysis of your part to see if they can build it. Those particular parts that I showed you were $5 a piece, so you know it adds up, but it's you know, they'll do a complete analysis. They don't like thin walls, I can tell you that, because they do a sort of a cleaning process that they say would just blow right through them. So you have to be careful with the geometries you send them.
Did they give you some guidelines about what's considered
Yeah,
thin?
they have guidelines on there. I think it might be 1 millimeter is the thinnest you can go. I had to reject some parts because I was just, you know, they should have probably been metal anyway. And you know, just not the best. Plastic would not be the best material for what I was trying to do.
I suppose for the main part you could do plastic and then just add some metal to it.
You could. I'm not the best solderer either, so I kind of shy away from metal, but this I'm gonna have to with some of this stuff. So I'm certainly no Gene.
technology. You know, I mean, everyone's got their strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, well,
And that's an area that I'm more of a consumer.
Some of us have more of one and less of the other.
Phil,
Yes.
Phil Lorenzo here.
Yeah, Joe.
Can you hear me? Did you have any file discontinuities that you had to correct in terms of nodes or arc? Was there any of that?
No. My biggest problems with the rejections from Shapeways were wall thicknesses.
Okay. I know I took a laser file and tried to run it on a CNC system, and there were so many node discontinuities and arc disconnects. It would not convert to it was a G file. It would not convert and had to be completely redone. So that's why I asked.
Yeah.
I did nothing to encourage a presentation for this month, and no one came forward with one on their own. So all we have is show and tell.
Greg?
Now concluded, so we can just open it
Greg,
up to random
this Matt.
comments.
Greg, I just wanted to mention on presentations, I don't know if folks know who Tom Loria is. Tom has an active YouTube channel. He's a professional ship modeler. He lives up in Cape Cod. Folks that haven't seen some of his videos, he just posted one where he's doing a restoration on the John Richmond. This is a vessel that he learned was actually part of the Chicago expedition back in the late 1800s. This was the where they debuted the Ferris wheel and such, if people are familiar with that. He's got this boat he's restoring. It's a fantastic video. The reason I bring this up is we've invited Tom to speak at our May meeting for the Ship Model Society of New Jersey. And he's accepted. And he's also done whale boats. He's done a beautiful Cape Cod catboat. And I don't know what specifically he's going to present on. He's looking for input on that from us, but I just wanted to make sure you folks know, and you're all invited as usual to that. And you might want to seek out his videos if you haven't. They're excellent. He's got
Could
some.
Could you spell his last name, please?
Yes, Lauria.
Thank you.
Member of the and past president of the Constitution Club in Massachusetts, and he's also he's got a shop down in Cape Cod.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
So anyway, everything's just open up to random chat and comments and questions now, since we're concluded. Otherwise,
I've got
wrap it
a
up.
question I'd like to ask.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of paint does everybody prefer? I've experimented with acrylics, oil-based paints, and things like that, and I'm really not happy with any of them.
Well, what are you painting on?
I'm primarily painting on wood, and I hate to say this, but some of the best results I've gotten have been with rattle cans. I've tried with my airbrush, even using acrylics with the airbrush. And I pre-treat the wood occasionally if I think it's going to fuzz up. I'll put something on it to seal it. And doggone if I still don't get some fuzz. I don't know what's going on. Just any suggestions anybody might have?
Don, I have airbrushes. I've got about 9 of them, from a $30 airbrush to the Grex Tritium, and I almost exclusively use acrylics because they're easy to clean. They don't gum up my brushes. But I've had no problem at all with acrylics if they're properly strained and thinned. to the proper consistency. Now, when they get to that consistency, instead of putting 1, 2, 3, 4 coats of paint on, sometimes you end up putting 8 or 10, fine sanding between and that sort of thing. As far as the wood splintering, I do a lot of basswood, especially for inside
Yes.
stuff. And wetting it, sanding it, wetting it, sanding it will get rid of most of that. And then, as you said, you seal where you think it's necessary. But what sort of poor results are you getting with the airbrush?
A slight fuzzing of the wood. I mean, that's after I've sealed it. Now I've got an airbrush that's 40 years old, and I'll thin the acrylics with a little bit of alcohol and glycerin, which seems to work. But because I have a friend, that's what he uses, and I don't know what. Maybe I need to reinvest in a new airbrush. I don't know. But
even the simplest airbrushes I've found, if they're kept clean and you have a proper needle nozzle match, should be okay. I've not. I use acrylic thinner. I've tried alcohol and some of the others, and I find from time to time the alcohol will produce lumps in some of the acrylic paints that I use. Vallejo is a good acrylic to use, and there's another one, Blam or something like that. I can't remember the name of it. But I haven't had trouble with any. I think your problem is probably with the wood more than with your airbrush. And perhaps that airbrushing water on it, letting it dry and sanding it, airbrush some more water to let it dry and sand it, is going to resolve a lot of your splintering problems. And then, of course, a sealer should do that also.
Yeah, well, it seems to be more with the basswood. My hulls are all made out of pine or cedar. That's what I'm using to plank everything, and that doesn't seem to be too bad. And my buddy, believe it or not, he's using those cheap bottles of 50-cent bottles of paint from Walmart or whatever, you know, the craft stores. And I don't know what he's doing. I might have to go sit with him and let him walk me through everything. But yeah, the basswood especially seems a real fine fuzz that kind of pops up, and I'll sand it and paint it again. And sometimes I've even resulted to brushing over top of it, especially on trim pieces and things like that. But yeah, you know, any words of wisdom I appreciate. So thank you, guys.
Okay, on what I have done on my destroyer, my DE, that was a basswood hull essentially. I sheathed it in basswood. After sealing it with a wood sealer and priming it, I used an acetone-based paint from True Color for all of the painting that I've done. And properly sealed and primed, I have never had any issue using the True Color line of. They have a full range of military colors, ground, air, sea, and I'm very happy with the paint.
So it was True Color?
Yeah, TRU .color, .com, I think, or True TRU.
All right. Note that.
Don does a lot of work boats. Are they going to have greens and reds and white?
Yeah, they've got generic colors also, not necessarily all, but grays and stuff that you would need for military colors. But it's like I said, it's an acetone-based paint, and they have all of their sealers and primers and thinners also. But I just used, as far as a primer, I just use an Ace gray primer or a red primer from Ace. And that's just a. I think
it's what I'm using for a primer. I don't seem to have any issues with the primer.
Right. Yeah, once it's dried, I mean, it's like painting on any other surface. I mean, once properly prepared, it's sealed, and I've not had any issues with fuzzing, unless you sanded through the primer. Then you might expose the wood. But the hull, like I said, and the boat primarily is wood and basswood on top of that. So. There you go. I mean, that's the color. That's the paint that I use because since the enamels from what is it? Model Masters is kind of all but dried up. I've kind of switched to this, and I don't have a whole lot of experience with acrylics. I do also use acrylics, but that's the paint of choice today, anyways.
Yeah, I couldn't understand that decision by, I guess it was DuPont's, the parent company, to shut that line down. But I'll be honest, I've still got bottles that have the 13-cent sticker on them from when I was a kid. I put some paint thinner back in them and a couple BBs and mix it up, and it still works.
Bottles that I bought from defunct hobby shops from 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
This is the Vallejo that I've found helpful. That's the brand.
Okay.
I've never had a problem with that. And I've used a number of craft, Franklin, what's the name of well, they're out of business anyway. The Ceramcoat, I think, was the name of it, because I can mix just about any color for like $1.29 a bottle and match a color on a model. So even those relatively inexpensive acrylics seem to work well for me. There's something else with the small part. It doesn't apply to large parts particularly easily, but burnishing the wood that you're using, even if it's basswood, but especially with something like walnut or cherry or apple, burnishing small parts will absolutely get rid of any splintering at all. And I use a hard piece of ebony or mahogany and just burnish the wood part, especially if it's a block or something small like that, before I finish it. And there's never been any splinter lifting at all once that's done.
Okay.
Do any of you remember the Hampton Hobby House in the old college?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I still have bottles from them.
That's been a while.
It has been a long while.
All right. Well, those were good suggestions. Thank you, guys.
Sure.
Speak. What everybody's.
Mike B.
Okay, I'll talk to you, Ron. You're the only other one not muted.
Well,
Yes, go ahead.
My email address, because I'd like to share one really neat pon yacht that I did was made by the Gibson Guitar Company.
Go ahead.
3 years, and the owner's father worked for Gibson and had one of the first of these off the assembly line, and it was called the Kalamazoo, which of course is where Gibson Guitars headquarters is. And I did a restoration on that. Anyway, I'm at R. Lewis, RLEWIS CLU at AOL.com.
All right. I'll tell you what, send me a chat note real quick with that, if you could. Can you do that from your system there?
I have no idea whether I can or not.
Okay.
Open
up your chat and you can send a quick
down
note
at the
to
bottom
me.
of your screen, you should see a voice balloon that says chat.
I've got that, yeah.
And then you can send it to everyone or individual person.
Oh my goodness. My camera was resting on the O.
Okay.
So I have no idea where I am now. I guess I better erase all this first.
So Sean, is that really a paint?
Now, here's.
Yes, it is a penny.
Okay,
I don't work in your scale.
Now what do I hit file? Or what?
Down at the bottom, you found the chat?
Yeah, I've put in my email and it says to everyone. So just hit enter?
Okay.
Yep. I presume so. Yep.
There it is.
Yep.
Okay. me get this resituated.
All right.
Got
well,
it.
I think we've concluded. Hopefully we'll be seeing each other live and in person next month. As I said before, I'll try and do a test run with video. If I can't or it doesn't work, we'll have a short mid-month meeting just to say hello to those people who are remote.
Hey, Greg, do you guys have sort of a yearly picnic or some sort of get together?
We do. We've had to skip it past couple years. It's usually our September meeting.
Okay.
So
Are you thinking about doing it this year?
I don't know. Last time we checked, the park where we hold it still wasn't accepting reservations. I don't know if that's changed. Ryland,
Yeah,
Page, our
I checked
treasurer, is
here
the
in
one
May.
who is organizing that. I doubt he's even bothered to make an attempt. What do you say, Ryland? You haven't looked into that, have you?
I have not checked in May. It's all dependent upon the governor as far as group size outdoors.
Once they open
That's
it
what I
up,
was told before.
yeah, and once they open it up, I suspect it's going to fill up really fast because people are going to be anxious to get back to the picnics that they've postponed for a year and a half or so. But we'll do our best. We'll do our best.
Hey, Greg, I have an alternate suggestion. If we cannot get to a public venue such as the park, would everybody be amenable to meeting at a private residence? I would offer my backyard.
You have a very big backyard too. I'm sure I'm up for it. I don't know why anyone would object.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you for offering, and I'm sure that will work out if we can't manage the park.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I'd be willing to, depending on the date we pick, take a ride down. I've got a sister-in-law in Chincoteague, Virginia that we could stop and see as well. So I'd love to see some of you guys in person.
Yeah, and I have extra rooms and so forth. You're more than welcome. But that's something we can set up at pretty short notice because it's a simple matter of just logistics.
I was about to say the same too. We have a guest room for anyone who needs one. Save yourself the hotel cost. I'm sure you'll receive several other similar offers.
So we are going to have a picnic at some point this fall.
Yeah.
One or another.
It sounds like a given. Yeah.
Okay, good.
And
we'll plan on something. But I'll keep checking with the Newport News Parks and see what we can get up with them.
the other thing you might be interested in driving down for if you enjoy road trips is we usually have auction each March. And we skipped it last year and we've skipped it this year. But we'll probably reschedule it for this year as soon as we're able to get a venue for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely coordinate my trip around one of this club's venue, events. So no problem.
How about an auction? How about an auction picnic? Just throw it all in one big bag.
Why not? Get barbecue sauce on the goods. So that, yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm sitting here thinking that maybe the thing to do would be to take some of this stuff that's sitting over here to the side and just pricing it and bringing it to the picnic and putting it on the table and with a basket. And if you want it, you put the money in the pot.
Sounds like a plan. I mean, we don't have that many items, do we? Or I don't know how much we've accumulated over the last couple of years.
I got a donation of books.
I've got 10 boxes of stuff from George Livingston.
Oh, that's right.
We got this. Yeah, we got the stuff from George, and we got a few things here. But there's a mountain of fairly obscure books that came from some place called Pocosin. And some of them are a little strange. But anyway.
All right.
We can do both things.
So we've slipped back to new business all of a sudden. Oh, well.
We can readdress it next month.
Yeah. All right, cool. I'm going to wrap it up. Good to see all you guys virtually.
Thanks, everybody.
See you again
Good to
next
see you,
month.
Jeff.
Nice seeing everybody. So long.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
More pleasure here.
All right. See you, John and me.
Mike, Jane, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Greg, we'll stay in touch. I'll talk with Beth early next week.
Okay, cool.